Alright, this is just a quick review on Chapter 5, the stuff that we've covered thus far, and just to give you something to study for the exam for Chapter 5. It's not going to be this complicated on the exam. In fact, this isn't complicated at all, but it's going to be very general because we just started to get into Chapter 5, so I just want you guys to have a general idea of how things are working with functions here. So this program is just going to take in two user inputs, both floats. They're going to be two sides to a triangle, and we're going to compute the third side. That means we have to make sure that the two sides entered are valid inputs. Basically, they're positive and not zero. So, and we're also going to need them to be floats as well. So, alright, so I'm just going to write it in the main, and then I'm going to show you how you can make functions kind of based off of what you already know how to do. Maybe you haven't had that clicking moment yet. So here we go. So we're going to prompt the user to enter in a side. So enter in a side. And I'll put float just to remind the user that they have that capability. Scan F. And then we're going to do %F. No need for a new line here. And then we're going to take a side in. So I need to declare side, float, float side. So we need to do it twice. We need it for two different ones. But let's just go ahead and modularize this. We want a function that we can call that says, tell the user to enter in a side, and then just give me back what they sent in, but make sure it's legit, aka positive and not zero. So I'm going to cut that, and let's make our own function here. It's going to return a float value. That's the user input, right? So get side from user. Doesn't take any parameters, so we can just leave this blank. I'm going to paste in what we have. So this float side now is local to the get side from user function. Can't be seen from main function. So just remember that. We can't see the side variable in the main. So what we have to do is we actually have to return side here. So when we call it, that's the value we can use later. So let's check to see if input is greater than 0, right? It can't be equal to 0. It's got to be positive, and it can't be 0. So if side is greater than 0, then return it. Go ahead and just return side. If it isn't, I kind of want it to loop and keep asking the user again. So what can we use to do that? We can use a while loop. So I'm going to have this while loop run forever. So that means we need a break statement inside the while loop, right? Whoops. So where could we use that? If the input was valid, so this is valid input, then else means it wasn't valid. So we can just say nothing, right? We can just delete this. Let's kind of talk that through. So say we call it here. We'll get side from user. We'll just call it and float return value. So whatever comes back from here gets stored into ret value. Alright, so we call it here in the main. Comes up, declares a side variable, prompts the user, enters a while loop, prompts the user, gets the input, checks to see if it's legit. If it's not legit, then it's not going to run the return code, right? So it'll get out of this bracket here and then just keep looping. Return is just as good as a break. If you try and break before this, it actually will not return. So you can just end the function and the while loop with a return statement. So that should be it for that. We get back down to here. What should be returned is whatever was stored inside value. It will get stored in the return value here. This can be named whatever you want. So in this case, we can call it side 1, side 2, and then store one time inside 1, and then we can call it again using the same code. We'll just store the new return value inside 2. So see how nice this is? We didn't have to copy paste this twice. We can just call it twice here. Pretty cool. Alright, so the next thing we need to do is basically think about the Pythagorean theorem. What is it? A squared plus b squared equals c squared. So essentially, the c side is equal to the square root of a squared plus b squared. So in C would look like this, right? Or you could use that, what is it, the POW A and then 2 in the math.h, which reminds me we're going to have to use that anyway. So I'm going to add in, I'll include math.h for the square root. Okay. So now that we have side 1 and side 2, let's compute side 3. So I need to make another variable here. Slide side 3. Okay. So side 3 is going to be equal to the square root of side 1 squared plus side 2 squared. That's pretty much it. And then we can output that. So printf, let's go ahead and show it all. So we can say side 1 squared plus side 2 squared equals side 3 squared. Instead of actually putting that, let's just put the actual numbers. Okay, put a new line, and then we need to match with these place markers the variables that we want to output. So side 1, side 2, and side 3. Okay, so how could we modularize this portion? We call a function, say, Pythagorean's theorem or something, Pythag theorem or something. So let's do float pith foo, how about that? And then it actually takes in 2 actually. It takes in 2 inputs, and those are the 2 sides. So let's say they're float, we'll call it S1, and float S2. You always have to use the types when declaring the variables in the parameters. There's no shortcuts with commas if they're the same type. So we can essentially take what we have down here and put it up here. So I'll go ahead and just do that. But instead it's S1 and S2, because we're using the input parameters being passed in. So these are passed in from the main function. So we need to actually just return this. We don't even need to make a third variable. We can just return it like so. And so what side 3 can get here is this, you just call pyfoo, or pithfoo. But we use side 1 as an input, and side 2 as an input. Okay, so essentially what this now does, I'm going to remove, I'll keep that there. When a program runs, it hits main, creates these variables. The first thing it does, it says, oh, okay, we're going to get a return value from get side from user. It's going to be called. It's going to go up to this function, and it will keep getting the user input until they enter a valid side value. And then it's going to return that side value and store it into side 1. Then it's going to get called again. It's going to get that input, wait till it's valid, and then it's going to get side 2. It's going to be stored into side 2, sorry. Then we created another function that returns a float value, but it takes in 2 float values as input. So it takes we put it in side 1 and side 2 as the 2 inputs. So they essentially get, the value gets stored into local variables of the Pythagoras Pythagorean theorem function here, and they are used to compute the third side, and that this computation, the result of this computation, is returned and stored in the side 3 because of this assignment operator. Then we just print it out, and that's it. Alright, giving it a try. I think the easiest one we know is the 3, 4, 5. So 3.0, 4.0, and there it is, 5.0, 3, 4, 5 triangle.